Welcome to our webinar today. Our webinar really is here to show you what's been going on over the past several months and things you should pay attention to. And I'm Chris Doty, and you may know me as Chris Doty, but I'm here from Gentian Financial. We're here to go through some of the different ideas that you should pay attention to. I like to go big to begin with, so we're going to start off with my gratitude. And gratitude for me over the past weekend, we've had a wonderful, wonderful time. The Mother's Day weekend of spending time with my wife and my daughters. We turned around and did everything for her, went out to breakfast, played golf. That was her request, by the way. And had a wonderful lunch, hung out, went out to a park in Wauwatosa as well, and then did a bunch of things that she wanted to do, which was great. It was just great spending time with my three girls. So that is my go big for the last weekend. How about anyone else? Ken, how about yourself?
Yeah, thank you, Chris, and good to be here with everybody as well. Yeah, my go big is Mother's Day weekend was this last weekend. Got to do some gardening, got all the pots ready for my wife to put some beautiful flowers in there. And also I'm grateful for that my daughter and I are on a journey of running together. We did our first 10K recently, and we have another one coming up here in next weekend, actually, in Dousman. So looking forward to doing that.
Thank you very much, Ken. How about yourself, Zach?
Yeah, thank you, Chris. Very grateful for spending time with my wonderful mother as well. But just for the sake of switching up, I'm extremely grateful for the opportunity to study tax and estate law for 20 hours over 2 days at the end of last week. So not exactly riveting for most, but extremely beneficial for us and figuring out what's really important to bring back to you guys. And also gratitude coming out of it as when we go to those and, top advisors from across the country and top accountants there as well. We're revered as one of those top teams that people look for advice and guidance. So I'm extremely grateful for the mentorship and everything I've received since being here and just for our team in general.
Outstanding. Thank you very much, Zach. I appreciate that. How about Mike? Mike, man.
Thanks, Chris. I'm grateful for family, and particularly additions to family, maybe future in-laws who've been helping me out a little bit. By the time that this recording is hopefully through compliance and up on YouTube, I might be engaged. So grateful for that opportunity, and I'm pretty excited about it, if you can't tell.
If it's not, you might have just ruined the surprise.
We get it done quick enough. Thank you, Mike. That's super exciting. We appreciate you. It was great to see your lovely potential to be a few weeks ago. Really enjoyed it. How about Michael Birschbach?
Thanks, Chris. I know we just got through Mother's Day, but I'm really grateful for my father. He's actually going to be transitioning out of full-time work into part-time starting this week, Friday. Has been with the same engineering company for 40 years, which this day and age is pretty rare to see. But he's taught me a lot of good things about hard work, loyalty, and also just about every day I realize I'm turning into him just a little bit more.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Thank you, Michael. I appreciate that. It must be a good thing. So I don't know him well, but he must be judging by you. So what I want to go through right now is some of the questions that we're hearing from you. Today is really our intention to bring you some notable ideas that you should be paying attention to. There's a lot of things going on in the media. There's a lot of things like 3 wars. It might be breaking into World War III. There's a lot of that. We want to talk about some of the things you should be paying attention to. What is it that we're seeing right now? So things we're hearing and questions we're hearing from you are quite plethora, but really about the election that's going on, a lot of things going on about the tax consequences. But I think predominantly right now I'm saying things about the election and what's happening with oil reserves. What will all this mean to energy? What's happening with China? Those are some of the questions I see. But as you see here, these are some of the most we'll capture. What's happening in the markets? Should I be worried about the elections? What should I do with my cash reserves? What's happening with interest rates? What are the planning opportunities with this environment that we're in? And why am I hearing so much more about artificial intelligence? So as we go through, those are some of the topics we'll kind of bring up as we go through. But as I do, I want to kick this off to what's going off behind the scenes. So.
Thanks, Chris.
You bet, Mr.
Yeah, jumping right into it. So reviewing portfolio holdings, this is something that we are always doing. So regardless of changes that we're making, things that we're looking at, trying to look to be skate where the puck will be, if you will, but then also be very cognizant of the fact that we hired these managers for a lot of different reasons. And one is that they're very good at their jobs. And so we want to make sure that that trend continues. If there's ever a reason to make a change, we take a look at this, we go through different things and different ideals, we look at different hypotheticals, could go on and on and on and on about it. We're constantly reviewing the portfolio holdings. The other thing that we're doing is reviewing planning items. You know, I think Zach and I heard on our CFP studies that when the tax laws change, just like that, every pause that you take, 4 new tax laws, right? Or at least it seems that way. So we got to continue to always review the tax planning, the different ideas that are out there, the planning items in general, what we can do for you and keep more money in your pocket and also preserve your money for the future. Looking at cash holding alternatives, you know, interest rate environments are changing. We want to continue to make sure we bring you the newest and best opportunities and what's available for you. And then finally, reading for perspective. Well, it's not finally from what we're doing behind the scenes, but we're going to pass it off to somebody different. Reading for perspective. We're always looking for those different kinds of ideas that are hidden within the covers of a book or maybe an audiobook. You know, all these different things are kind of what we use on a regular basis to be able to come back to you with new ideas, different things. All of that continuing to grow, always getting better, and reading is a big part of that.
We're also always looking for ways to improve our deliverables, the way we communicate with you. We're also spending a lot of time meeting with industry experts, whether that be fund managers, other Raymond James teams who we can collaborate with because we're not necessarily competing with them, as well as industry experts, because the only constant thing that happens in our industry is change, as well as continuing education. Ed Slott, which is an elite IRA tax advisor that we partner with. Ken was just there last week. The Academy for Preferred Financial Advisors, which Zach had mentioned earlier as well. Just looking for ways to continue to sharpen our tools here at Gentian and to ultimately help you.
Yeah, absolutely. And on top of all of that, the CE requirements that we're able to go through and actually expanding upon, spent about 20 hours doing long-term care insurance recently. But anyways, I want to bring in, you know, one of these ideas that Chris brought to us back in the day after he got his oil changed. And so he came back with a checklist that showed all of which that was being looked at and how much that's appreciated. So we put together a checklist. Now, this checklist is actually dated. We put this back in 2020. And what we found out very, very quickly is that we can't fit everything that we do on one piece of paper. So this is a basis of just a visual, kind of bringing a little bit of perspective of some of the items that we look through during every single review meeting, before the meeting, after the meeting, on our periodic follow-ups. These are the ideas that make everything go. And we want to make sure that we stay on top of it. This checklist is just one piece of that. And if you notice on the checklist itself, one of the smallest sections, well, in comparison to everything combined, is in fact investment review. There's so much more to planning and the long-term plan that we want to make sure that we encompass all of it. And here's just that quick visual of some of those things of what they are.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. One thing that we've been working on heavily for a long period of time, but especially recently, is just working with and also screening various centers of influence in our industry. So that's estate planning attorneys, CPAs, real estate brokers, bank lenders, insurance experts, you know, health insurance specialists. And we had recently, you may have attended or heard about it, we had a Where Will You Live workshop. We weren't sure. It was the first one that we went through. We weren't sure how good it was going to turn out, and we had great feedback, great attendance, 70 or 80 people at that one, and it was very eye-opening to all of us, and to the people that attended told us that it was eye-opening to them of all the different decisions that it comes down to when it comes to where will I live in the future. The other one, recently we worked with an estate planning attorney in the area to go through, we're retired, now what? What are the various things to consider, not only on the planet side, like the things we're going to talk about and share today, but on the live it side? How can we wake up with more meaning and purpose? How can we make more meaningful decisions? How can we organize different things well ahead of time? So always working with our centers of influence. And going on to the next slide, continuing education is extremely important to us. We just wanted to highlight a few of those. Michael did a great job of mentioning a couple, but Ken last week spent a lot of time with Ed Slott, who are the foremost IRA tax planning experts in the country. Spent time with them learning about the new changes. I was actually with APFA last week, learning along similar things, the kind of the top ideas in practice management, and also with the sunsetting of the tax laws starting January 1st of 2026, all the various planning to go with that, and also a few estate tax law changes. Peter attended the Elite Wealth Advisor Symposium earlier this year. Chris and I were at Coach about 2 weeks ago, and then our team was working with Empowered Wealth. That's really so we can get better for ourselves, and also that's really the live it side of things. How can we ask potentially better questions to each of you so you can realize and discover what's really most important to you, and so we can get to know you better. And the team also attended the Raymond James Elevate, where Chris actually got to speak in front of Raymond James and a lot of advisors in the sense of really just practice management, all the things he's gone through over the last 30 years, and a lot of things to consider, which we heard amazing feedback from that as well. Kind of moving on into markets, as Chris mentioned, there's a lot going on. There's 3 major conflicts across the globe. There's interest rate uncertainty, a lot of inflation conversations. Now we're starting to hear about cryptocurrencies again, starting to hear about, the meme stocks, if you will. How are markets going up? How is that even possible? And if we go on to the next slide, we'll kind of talk through the annual end of the world. If we're looking at through the first quarter, the S&P 500 is about 10% on the year to start the year. We had a little temporary volatility in a downward direction after March 31st, but pretty much right now, almost exactly 10% on the year for the S&P. But this is one that we go through consistently each and every year in each of our reviews and every forum, just because of its importance. So this really goes back over the last 40 years, since 1980. Every single year, on average, there's a correction of over 14% every single year. So normal and necessary for the long term, yet even though there's a correction of 14% per year, the long-term average during that time for the total return for the year is right around 10%, just below it, 9.5%. So it's just incredible to look at. And the most recently, I don't want to steal it from Mike talking about corrections in a second, but really have gone through 3 major corrections in the last 5 years. So really incredible patience of sticking to your plan and sticking through these corrections.
Thanks, Zach. Well, we could just skip these slides now. I'm just kidding. With the market corrections, I'm looking forward to actually experiencing the in-law story that Ken always goes through, but we'll get there someday. I'm not going to count my chickens before they hatch, if you will. But anyways, when describing market corrections, Zach really hit it on the head, and that last slide just goes through such a nice job of showing how often and frequent these truly are. Just the fact that every single year on average is a 14% decline in the stock market. That's fascinating. We define a correction as being a 10% or more decline, and that means more often than not, we experience one of those each and every year. And these are necessary. They are essential to the health of a long-term bull market. And one analogy of these could be thought of a thunderstorm. At the end of the day, to whatever extent that you don't enjoy thunderstorms, I had a dog back in the day that he just had to stick it out. Like, he had to make it through because there was going to be green grass for him to run out and catch that Frisbee with. He just hung in there and waited out the thunderstorm. So at the end of the day, we want to make sure that we stick through, we stick to the plan. That's why it was created. We don't need to make changes as it happens because we've already got the roof over our heads. We're not getting rained on. So we can stay invested and make it so that we're able to get back outside and enjoy the sunshine. As we alluded to before, this is actually an old chart. This is from before 2020, and Zach talked about the fact of the matter being we've experienced some pretty significant corrections between then and now, and this is the averages before. We actually would like to get back to seeing 10% or more every 16 months. Wouldn't that be something? So we've been seeing a lot of changes within the market itself. And truly, there's something called mean reversion that Chris always talks about, getting back to the way things are. And we've been experiencing some pretty heightened volatility. over the course of the last few years, and we've had a lot of experience with the fact of the market going up and down and being able to stick in there and be able to have a year like last year. We have to go through years like 2022 to be able to get those returns that we had last year, and then look at that continuing onward. Market likes to climb, it likes to trade at all-time highs. Corrections are just a fact of matter, and they're trivial at the end of the day. We can always reflect on why a correction happens. We never know exactly what's going to cause the next one. So those are interesting, but that's about all it is. We got to stick to the plan at the end of the day.
Pulling off on corrections, just taking a look at this chart, you're seeing 4 time frames from left to right: 1 year, 5 year, 10 years, and 20 years. This is from 1950 all the way up to the end of last year. You'll see 3 colors as well here. The green would be a portfolio of all great companies, also known as stocks. The blue would be a portfolio of all bonds, and the gray would be a balanced portfolio of the two. So the range and the width that you're seeing on those is the range of that returns that we're seeing on an annual basis. So on the positive side of things, you'll see for stocks over that 1 year time frame, the 52%. And then on the downside, kind of the worst 1 year performance would be down at 37%. But this chart just goes to show you the importance of having that longer time horizon when investing in great companies and in the stock market, as well as being diversified. As you see, the longer the time frame that you could give yourself, as well as being diversified, will just give you a better chance of having that positive return over time.
Thank you very much, Michael. I appreciate that. So as we head into this, the next question is, should I be worried about the election? It's a big question people have going on, as you're seeing a lot of political issues in the news on a constant basis. And we've had a lot of questions over time about that, a lot of speculation, and a lot of people have been told an awful lot. I think as we go through this, though, as we go to the next slide, let me show you something. People often ask the question of, well, gee, who's better to be in? Is it a Republican or Democrat? Well, you can see here, actually, if you're just invested only during Republican presidency years, right? And this says growth of $100,000 invested in the S&P since 1953. If you're just during Republican times, you end up with $83,000. If you're just during Democratic times, it's $215,000. If you're invested the entire time, it's $1.8 million. Never mix your politics with your investing. I want to make sure you say that if you're about making, saving, and using your money well, actually. So that's a really big part of what we've got going on. There's another way to show the same thing on the next graph as well, if you want to see it a different way. The red and the blue there are the Democrat or the Republican, then the Democrat in blue, and then the black is going to be fully invested the entire time. So I would say, once again, be very careful about keeping your politics out of your investing, and maybe just invest. Entrepreneurs, here's one thing I know. Entrepreneurs really aren't concerned with who's president when they do what they do in solving great problems. They're more concerned with helping humanity. So that's just a couple on that. I think there's a couple more slides we're going to talk about in that as well.
Yeah, it's a good point you bring up there, Chris. And it's funny when you hear about the investing in politics. It's funny, we met an investor back in 2016, and we're sitting down with them and we're talking through their scenario and said, "What's your investment strategy right now? What does your plan look like?" And the gentleman said, "I'm actually not invested at all. I'm actually in cash the whole time." We're like, "Well, why is that?" He goes, because who is president right now?" And so that's really interesting to have that. And, to see what would have happened since 2016 with an investment between now and then, maybe being invested probably would have helped that person out a little bit more. But, one of those things that we always say is, like, feel the way you want to feel. It's okay the way that you want your views, have your views, feel the way you feel about certain topics. That's wonderful. Our perspective says, you know what, maybe we should, like Chris said, draw a line between investing and politics.
Thank you very much, Ken. Totally appreciate that as well. Mike, why don't you bring us into some of the ideas? Oh, here, you've even got the post-election. Why don't you go through that?
Yeah, absolutely. So the idea between the last two slides and the one that we just had up before is pretty straightforward. The idea is that be invested, because seriously, at the end of the day, and let's see if I can go back here. When we're looking at putting money into the market and looking at averages and the long-term return, 7.5% in election year and 8% in non-election year, that's what's the difference? Truly, at the end of the day, well, besides 0.5%. But the other thing that I want to point out, though, this is the average return. This means that on average, election years are positive. No matter who's who's becoming president, whatever that situation is, who gets elected, they on average have a positive return when it comes to the end. So something to just always continue to consider. And in fact, only 1 year on this chart specifically, which I believe was in the early 2000s in the 2000 election, is the only one that is negative out of all of these. And you know what happened in 2008? It recovered within 12 months of that actual election. And there's a lot of other reasons. I said, you know what happened in 2008? None of you thought about an election. There was something else that caused this. It wasn't truly linked back to that one political event by any means. And what was thought about was the fact that the housing market crashed, right? Wasn't that there was an election. So interestingly enough, those are some of the things that we like to think about there.
Yeah, I just wanted to add real quick on that one, Mike, if you go back, we absolutely love this chart because we often get the question of, should we wait to invest, or don't markets always go down post election? Or should we wait to see who's in office? And this one's kind of one of the best ones that we can see of not to wait, because the future's unknown, but also historically things have gone extremely well post-election. Thank you, Mike.
Absolutely. Thanks, Zach. So here's my favorite part of every presentation, where I get to talk about interest rates. So what are we doing? What are we doing with our cash right now? What's happening with interest rates, and what planning opportunities truly are there? And the planning opportunities have not changed when it comes to rates at this point, right? We're able to get a lot of money on cash. We've been taking advantage of that in money market funds, different types of special types of savings accounts. If you haven't been looking at those as an alternative to just a regular plain Jane savings account, there's a lot of options that can get you a little bit extra. Banks typically will not come out and tell you that your interest rate in your savings account is as low as it is. And they won't come out and tell you, unless they're trying to get you as a new customer, that you have the opportunity for a higher rate in a money market fund or a money market at a bank. We're also seeing money market funds being able to be a little bit more resilient with their interest in comparison to some of those money markets that are in banks specifically. So what should I do with my cash reserves? There's a lot of things. First and foremost, if you need that money in a short term, money markets are a great place to be. Money market funds, even a little bit better. When you look at the opportunity, though, when you talk about having like 1 to 3 years, bonds are starting to look really attractive. You know, when you look at from a peak rate hike schedule, the return of bonds in the following 12 months is typically very good. And so that gives a lot of opportunity, because as we've talked about in the past, when bonds are issued and they can only get 2% interest in the beginning of a year, as an example, let's talk about 2022, at the beginning of the year issued with 2% interest, the end of the year you issue a bond with 5% interest. What do you get? Well, you got a bond in the beginning that's worth quite a bit less than the one that's issued at the end. Now, think about this coming up here. We can get bonds at 5% interest at some point in the future. Maybe bonds are at 4% interest. Guess how much the ones at 5% interest are going to be worth in comparison, right? We're going to see bonds that we buy today trade at a premium at some point in the future when interest rates come down. Now, what's happening with interest rates? Truly, nobody knows. We're looking at this from a perspective of the Federal Reserve has a very tough job right now. They have an election that they have to deal with, so they're not showing any sort of political affiliation. That's very important to them because they do operate independent. That's why Jerome Powell wears a purple tie, so that it cannot be interpreted that he is supporting one political party or another when he's speaking. But all of that being said, we're seeing inflation kind of start to rear its ugly head a little bit again. I mean, is that a bad thing? Maybe not. It shows that the economy is continuing to turn. We're getting decent job reports, all sorts of different things like that. That shows that the economy is strong. It gives us the ability to maintain these interest rates from a longer term perspective. Now, if we see in the future something shift with that, something happen where it appears that maybe the economy is trending towards a recession, watch for the Federal Reserve to act when they have that meeting. Right now, we don't know what's going to happen. There's lots of speculation. People think interest rates have peaked at this point. That could very well be the fact. The fact of the matter, though, is that we will most likely not see them rise like we did in 2022. And there is a better chance that they may come down at some point in the future, whenever that may be. And all of that encompassed, we talked about the planning opportunities that sort of exist along with that. We'll keep watching. We'll keep bringing it to you. I'm sharing the PowerPoint right now, so I can't tell you how long until the next Federal Reserve meeting, but I'll bring it in the future. Don't you worry.
Yeah, that sounds good, Mike. We appreciate that, and good perspective on interest rates and some of the opportunities to take advantage of there. We look at the planning items here, 1 through 7, from tax planning all the way to healthcare and everything in between. There's a lot going on there. So when you take a look at this, I was just with Ed Slott, foremost IRA experts in the nation, on IRA planning, tax planning, what we can do, what we can take advantage of. And you take a look at this, and for 2024, the year we're in now, 2025 next year, something is about to happen that's going to be a major shift. We might revert back to the old tax ways in 2026. That's going to be a big change. It's going to change the brackets. It's going to change the rate of tax we do pay from a percentage standpoint. Might even bring back AMT for some of us, if you guys remember those days. The itemizing versus standard deduction, that might come back into play. So again, we have our eyes on this for you. And what we're seeing here is some major opportunities from a tax planning standpoint that we'll review with you in your meetings. Because if we can pay taxes at a known lower rate today, and let me ask you a question: is the government looking maybe for more money at this point in time? The answer is probably yes. Now, how are they going to get that? They're going to get it through taxes of some way, somehow. And so if we can pay it at known lower rates today versus what may be higher in the future, that seems like a pretty good idea. So that kind of parlays into number 4, which is Roth conversions. And I know Zach or someone will touch on that as well. So that's tax planning, and a lot at hand. That one bullet point is pretty packed full of great opportunities.
Absolutely, Ken. And we heard that there will be a lot of speculation in the coming really year and a half, but especially depending on who gets elected. So we're constantly working with those specialists and together as a team to make sure that we're on top of the ones that make most sense to you, whether it's this year, next year, or for 2026. But as you guys know, Mike and I are especially excited about rebalancing anytime we get the chance to talk about it. But it's one of our timeless, our evergreen pieces, things that don't change, that are an extreme important part of our portfolio construction. In the last 3 years, really going back to 2021, was really the best examples of the benefits of rebalancing. Rebalancing, first and foremost, is to reduce risk, but if through certain market cycles, and especially if it's extended for a longer period of time, it actually can add over 1% of return per year by a one-time rebalance per year schedule. So just incredible to see the impact of that over the last 3 years. When it comes to number 3, charitable giving, we've been assisting really nonprofits in this space in our area of how to educate people giving to them more. And there's really 4 ways that you can give. The first and foremost is cash. It's probably the easiest one that we think about. The second one is through qualified charitable distributions. Many of you know about those already. For those of you that aren't as familiar, when you're 70 and a half, you can actually give directly from your IRA to charity and pay no tax. It's a phenomenal thing, and the charity doesn't pay any tax either. The other one is appreciated securities. You bought Apple stock at $10 a share, or a company for $10 a share, and it's now $100 a share. If you sold it and gave in cash, you'd have to pay capital gain tax, and depending if you itemize or standard deduction, you might not get a benefit for it at all. However, you can actually give directly of that stock to charity and pay no tax. If you love that company and want to participate in their growth in the future, you can actually buy it back, and it increases your basis in that stock as well. So phenomenal idea. And then one other one that's becoming more and more common recently, we'll see if it does with the tax law changes as well, but the use of a donor advised fund, where you can actually own your own donor advised fund. You can really bunch your contributions over many, many years into 1 year, take a larger itemized deduction. It makes sense if you have a higher income year than normal and trying to reduce it. And it's really nice because you have control of it over time without going through kind of the really complex things that go involved with a private, family foundation or other planning items that way. But since you brought it up initially, Ken, want to go through some Roth conversion strategies with us that you've worked through recently?
Yeah, that sounds good. Roth conversions, kind of back to the tax planning. This is where, if there's a way where we could save, it's hard to dollarize this because we don't know your specific scenario, but once we do, we can dollarize it for you. But what if we could save $10,000, $50,000, $100,000 of of money that should be in your pocket rather than giving it to the government. You know, that's really what a Roth conversion is really for you. It's also the idea of family wealth planning as well, which we love to talk about, because it's like, hey, you know, if we have this wonderful scenario, what if we all just kind of put our heads together and we understood what was going on? Why couldn't this money last for a really long time? And that's what this idea of Roth conversion planning really is. Paying at the rates we know, but also keeping the money in a situation where, hey, it may never be taxed again. That seems to be interesting for some people. We'll definitely have that conversation for you and your family as well. So that's really the Roth conversion conversation as well. And also, this one's a little bit of a tender topic, so I want to just be careful with it. It really is an opportunity, but I know that there's a lot of emotions built into this one. But if we do lose a spouse in a year, I know it's detrimental, it's emotional, it's hard to even think about money at that point in time. That's why you have us. We will think about it for you. We will help you through this. We'll work with your accountant. But there are some really great opportunities from a tax standpoint, if you will, if we do lose a spouse in a year, if the unfortunate does happen. So.
When it comes to Social Security planning for 2024, Social Security benefits got a 3.2% raise, also known as a cost of living adjustment. The main questions we're getting around Social Security is, when should I take it? How do I take it? And is there a strategy that me and my spouse can maximize to get the best benefit? There's a lot of things that we want to consider when discussing Social Security, and mainly it boils down to income. What other sources of income do we have, and do we need to start taking Social Security? The sooner you take it, as you know, that benefit will decrease. And the longer you wait, that benefit continues to increase all the way up until age 70. We're also goes hand in hand with Social Security, but looking at Medicare planning, Medicaid planning, as well as health insurance planning. There's something also called IRMA, or the Income Related Medicare Adjustment Amount, which is based on your annual income and how much your Part B premium costs. And those are all items that we want to consider when it comes to Social Security planning for you.
So talking about income planning, Social Security, all of this kind of feeds into what we're doing at the end of the day when it comes to paying ourselves in retirement. You've spent your entire life savings, you put yourself in this position to now support yourself. How do we pay ourselves? Where do we take that money from? How can we make sure that we keep the most money in our pocket as possible? And so that's going to become a strategy of what are we looking at with Social Security planning? As a lot of you know, Social Security is taxed at 85% of what you receive is actually subject to income tax. With that being said, how can we build something else around that? When do we start Social Security in comparison to the other income streams that we have? When do we use our traditional IRAs in comparison to Roth IRAs? There's a lot of different planning things that come out that could actually create a tax deduction at some point in your future. Ken's going to talk a little bit about healthcare planning. Some of those long-term care situations creates an event that you can actually deduct from your tax return. What a great time to be able to use pre-tax dollars in those moments to be able to keep our income low, because we are now able to deduct some of that tax that we normally have to pay. These things all work and create a cohesive plan that we're going to stick together, and we're going to be able to continue through all these moments, trusting the investments that they're going to come back in those moments, and then continuing to use those that are doing well to create our income throughout the course of our retirement.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. We appreciate that. And you can kind of round it out here. Number 7, healthcare planning. If I asked you the question, like, what does healthcare planning mean to you? We probably would get 3 or 4 different answers to that. What we're seeing right now is people are kind of getting stressed out and fed up with what they're currently doing, and it may only be 55 years old. Well, some of you know that Medicare only kicks in at 65. So what do we do from 55 to 65? That's what healthcare may mean to that person. Healthcare planning might also mean Medicare once we get there. What does it mean? What's covered, what's not covered? What about the 2 or 3 different plans that are available? What about the donut hole planning that goes on with prescription drugs? These are all questions that come up with healthcare planning, and we know the resources, we know the people to put you in touch with to really help and really make sure that your plan that we've set up for so long helps out with your healthcare planning when we do age. if that makes sense to some of you. Also, when we are aging, what does healthcare planning mean? Hey, where are we going to live? We just did a great program on this called Where Am I Going to Live? And what does healthcare look like at that point in time? What does Medicare cover? What does it doesn't? What doesn't it cover, I should say? Every county has something called Aging and Disability Resource Center, ADRC. Some counties are more involved and more helpful, some are not. It's a really good resource to kind of start with to say, okay, what's out there? If we need help, what does it look like and what's all available to us? So I find that to be an interesting piece of healthcare because it means so many different things to so many different people.
Thank you, Ken. Thank you, guys. Thank you for bringing us a wonderful, wonderful program today on some of the economic things we're seeing and issues that are going on right now. The next thing I'm going to address as I go through is number 7, you'll see is why am I hearing so much about artificial intelligence and AI? So as we go into the next section, I'm actually going to tell you a little bit more about that because it is pervasive, it is consistent, and everybody is talking about it. And most people are fearful of it. So there's a couple of things we'll talk about, maybe demystify a few things, maybe get you more confused on a few items as well. But I will talk about some of the Abundance 360 things that we have gone over in California. As I've just returned from a couple of weeks ago, being with 360 entrepreneurs who are government officials, entrepreneurs, scientists who are really looking at how technology will affect humanity. I've been going to that for 11 of the 12 years it's been in existence here. You'll see the Abundance 360 that we have. But what I want to do is a quick run down memory lane. If we go one slide forward, I want to talk a little bit about Abundance 360. And Peter Diamandis has put together a summary of that right here.
My mission at the Abundance Summit every year is to show you the technology that's going to transform your lives in the next 2 to 3 years. The tech that you can't go without. It was back in 2015 that we discussed Bitcoin.
You all own Bitcoin today. I still believe in it as a currency.
Back then it was $250 per Bitcoin. Today it's $50,000. In 2016 and 2017, we spoke about drones and robots. We had Mark Raybert, CEO of Boston Dynamics, speaking about the future of humanoid robots. Today, with Figure and Optimus, we're seeing a revolution about to take place. In 2021, Sam Altman joined us on stage to talk about what would soon become GPT-3 and GPT-4.
This is something that a year and a half ago, I would have said was quite far off.
As I look back 12 years to the founding of Abundance 360, everything we were speaking about, flying cars, autonomous cars, Bitcoin, AI, humanoid robotics, are coming true this year. What's going to happen in the next 12 years ahead as we do our countdown to the singularity? This year at the Abundance Summit 2024, we find ourselves at a critical inflection point, asking the question, how do I possibly keep up with the speed of change? Allow me to be your guide, to share with you the disruptions, the opportunities, the transformations coming our way at lightning speed.
So as we've gone through the video that you see for Abundance 360, as you can see, he gave us Bitcoin years ago. We talked about some of the ideas with Sam Altman just 3 or 4 years ago. And as he showed that to us, great, you can create a chair that looks like an avocado. Fantastic, right? It was starting to show us images. They talked to him even earlier, a few years before that, and talked about what artificial intelligence might be. So while he was just simply some smart kid on stage, now he's one of the vaunted experts 5 years later with the quick adoption of artificial intelligence. So as we go forward, as we see what we've looked at, how do you feel about change? Oh, really? Well, because that's interesting. There's going to be a lot of change coming up. I'm going to give you a couple of statements here as we go forward. And the abundance mindset is fairly important. First of all, I want to tell you right now, this is the slowest things will ever be in your life. It's a fact. Things are changing. They will change, and at a much more rapid pace. So as we look at this, it might be something we want to get used to versus fighting. I don't know that we can fight it. The second thing is, I want to give you this statement from Abundance 362. Nobody knows what's happening. Go back one more if you could. Nobody knows what's happening yet. And by nobody knows what's happening, the abundance mindset is essentially that if it's a problem, we will solve it if there's some sort of human or some sort of economic need or economic benefit to doing so. So this technology, and the reason a lot of people are there, obviously is to solve these problems. Some are there to make money, which is quite obvious as well. Some are there to solve health problems that they've seen from their kids or from their family. The beautiful thing about this as well is one thing I found from all of this is that the human equation is still probably the most important. So are you going to want your doctor, your personal advisor, to be somebody that's human or to be somebody that's a machine, just basically speaking words that humans have spoken and regurgitating them to you? Probably not. I've seen more people answer the first. I want my doctor, my closest advisors to be human, or at least use artificial intelligence in a smart way. So what we've done as well, a lot of the artificial intelligence we've been seeing, and we'll talk more about that in a bit, Raymond James uses, and we use an awful lot of things that help us become better at what we do. We'll talk about some of those. We have to be very careful because we're in a compliant industry, so we can't put your information out there because we're not sure it's going to be safe, but we can put ideas out there and work on better and better ideas. What would we do in this scenario? And then it'll give us 10 or 12 different ideas. Often it's things we already know and I already know because we study it for many, many years, but it is helpful if you're not necessarily an expert or don't have the perspective of a 30-year advisor as we go along. So this is something I did. I think the question before was, the next slide, I should say, is something about a Gutenberg moment. I want to bring something up to you here. Gutenberg in the 1400s made something called the printing press. Why is that important? A lot of people will say that is one of the single biggest inventions we've ever had because it allowed people to learn in a completely different way. Like they could actually get a printed book. Before it had to be handwritten, each thing was typeset in. Now they could simply run massive mimeograph copies of pages and send books and education to people all over the world, if you will. And that really changed history and humanity. Gutenberg moments are going to be very important because I'm going to refer to them again here, but let me give you a couple other examples, even just modern Gutenberg moments. How about electricity? How about, if you really want to go back to it, it was before the Gutenberg moment, but the wheel would have been a Gutenberg moment had we moved it up to 1400, right? Fire. How about the internet and the World Wide Web? That's a Gutenberg moment. How about smartphones? The fact that you can use a device such as this, and it could carry everything from your music, your appointments, your calendar, all sorts of incredible things on it, and you can talk on it. You can get texted on it. You no longer need a beeper. That is your beeper. Social media, the ability to share all sorts of things socially across the way. These are Gutenberg moments, right? So what's important about a Gutenberg moment? If you go to the next slide, the single biggest Gutenberg moment we ever have seen in history so far is artificial intelligence. So this picture here I created called the dystopian future that has a lot of different pieces, but this was created with something called DALL-E. It's actually an artificial intelligence. But the beautiful thing about this is I asked Chat.GPT itself, and I asked actually Copilot this question. I said, what is it that AI will do for human beings? Where will, how will AI change human lives? But I asked it two simple questions. Do you see the advent of AI as a Gutenberg moment? The artificial intelligence answer, yes. In many ways, the advent of AI can be seen as a Gutenberg moment. Just as Gutenberg's printing press revolutionized the spread of information and knowledge, AI is transforming how we process, analyze, and utilize data, reshaping industries, societies in profound ways. How big could it be, I asked. The impact of AI could be massive, touching nearly every aspect of human life, from healthcare and transportation to education and entertainment. AI has the potential to optimize processes, create new opportunities, and solve complex problems at scale. It could fundamentally change how we work, interact, and even perceive the world around us. Now, do you hear that? That is artificial intelligence actually making claims about itself and how it's going to help humans. So my next question is, how will AI change human lives? Let me give you a couple of samples. AI is poised to significantly change human lives in several key ways. Healthcare. AI can improve diagnostics, personalized treatment plans, and streamline administrative tasks, leading to better patient outcomes. All for that, also reduced costs. Education. AI-powered tools can provide personalized learning experiences that are adapted to each individual student's needs, not just the same thing for every student. So it can automate administrative tasks, making education more accessible and effective. Work and productivity. It can automate repetitive tasks, analyze vast amounts of data quickly, and assist in decision-making processes, enhancing productivity and creating new job opportunities while potentially displacing some current roles. It's kind of like farming. Did you realize in 1900, something like 93% of people worked in farming or the storage of food? What percentage is that today? Is it under 1%? I believe it is. It's the same kind of thing. So not being afraid of it, it's simply a transition that has occurred before, like moving from farming into manufacturing, right? So we didn't have a lot of manufacturing when everybody worked on the farm. Another is transportation, autonomous vehicles and traffic management to minimize or decrease congestion. You're stuck in a traffic jam, that's good news to you. Daily convenience, AI-driven personal assistants, smart home devices, and other technologies can simplify everyday tasks. They can enhance convenience and improve quality of life, like your own personal Jarvis, maybe planning your next vacation for you and buying the tickets at the lowest price at midnight while you're sleeping. Entertainment, it can create personalized content recommendations, generate new forms of media, even participate in creative processes. Social interaction, AI can facilitate communication, provide companionship and support. This is very important in countries like Japan, where they do not have a younger population to serve or to take care of their older population. Economic growth, this is a big one. This is what I'm going to talk about. By driving innovation, creating new industries, AI can contribute to economic growth, though it may also require addressing challenges related to job displacement and inequality. So here's the biggest thing. If you look at artificial intelligence, and you look at what it can do and what it has done. I talked about a Gutenberg moment just a bit ago. So Gutenberg moment changed how we all read, perceive, and learn. What Salim Ismail, one of the gentlemen there at Abundance 360 said is, what if we have 20 Gutenberg moments at one time? So for instance, these are now Gutenberg moments because it's infiltrating every single, and that's a bad word, not infiltrating, it's assisting us in every single economic category we could look at. We talked about health, work, home life. We now have the possibility, I asked it, how big could this be? It could literally change the way we operate. We now measure human capacity by productivity. You've heard it before, right? What if now one human has artificial intelligence and several robots that are linked to that human? That astoundingly, and on just a rocket scale, increases the productivity of humans. So how do we measure gross domestic product? If humans are able to do 20 times more than they can now, we may be in the realm of having massive productivity increases in the United States and other countries that have technology, if you will, like we've never seen before. Now, just because the ingredients exist doesn't mean they'll happen, right? So I know I go through this and I talk about all the possible probabilities of being positive. A couple of different ideas as we take a look at this as well with artificial intelligence is it's got some pieces on it that could be a bit more difficult. You've heard of something called chat.gpt. I'm also the second topic you got here as well, Bard. Chat.gpt just came out today with chat.gpt 4.0. Oh, it's going to be working much, much better on language models. So when you talk to a robot, yes, you heard me right. We talked to 3 of them, Amika and 3 others at Abundance 360. They communicate back with you via chat.gpt. They hear, listen, and respond. You can ask them a question. Hey, how's the weather in Temecula? It'll tell you exactly what it is, right? So it's very conversational, and this new aspect of chat.gpt will offer that as well. So some of the things that AI are going to offer us is the massive rapid innovation, because it was adopted quicker than almost any other process that existed. So let's go to the next slide if we can. So the massive popularity of some of the AI tools you'll see here, 60% adoption, or 14.6 billion, if you will, in the chat.gpt category. That's 60% of the industry total. Character.ai, which is creating your own character from who you are, was 3.8 billion. Quillbot, Midjourney, Hugging Face, Bard, Novel AI, CapCut, Janitor.ai, which is quite funny, and I think it's Civati, the little smallest one you see on the far side there. These are all the biggest AIs, but I think even the next slide might show us something even more impressive. How quickly, how it's being used today with companies like Walt Disney. Walt Disney's engineering. Let's take a look at this Imagineering.
Today I'm walking the halls of Walt Disney Imagineering to show you things that no one else has gotten to see. How did the 2 of you work together to make this masterpiece?
Well, we battled. Walt Disney Imagineering first started designing, planning, and building Disneyland.
Let me show you a little bit. It's not completed yet, but
this inspired all the great audio animatronic attractions around the world.
We start at the story. Story is key.
Walt Disney still inspires us to this day.
We're using new technology to bring characters to life.
A lot of work beyond just the 3D animation.
We're always looking for that new angle that's going to engage our guests.
And for the first time, we get to debut one of those very important characters. The guests are just going to love it.
That's what makes it all worthwhile.
We end up with a beautiful dance.
That's looking at how Walt Disney Imagineering is actually helping. So at the program we had at Abundance 360, Walt Disney Imagineering was there the first day in the Tech Hub. And the Tech Hub is where we get to touch and play with all these incredible technological features. What was funny is that Disney had these little bots that were like droids from Star Wars out there messing with us. It'd look at you, it'd ask you, it'd make little beeps and it like really inquisitive beeps. And it was really funny because you actually felt like you were interacting with something that was there in just another being of some kind, but in this case, a robot. So really cool to see what companies like Walt Disney are doing so that it can take us into that entertainment and maybe even into a useful tool or companion as an idea as we go forward. So as we're finding technology, those are some of the couple of other areas. Let's go to the next one. Next one is going to talk about something you've all heard a lot about, chat.gpt. As you look at chat.gpt, Bard, Gemini, many of these are coming out in different forms, but you're seeing the adoption rate. And what's important about the adoption rate of chat.gpt, if you go to the very, very, very top, these are what chat.gpt, how smart is it? It's how quickly it operates. In the very top category, verbal, in the GRE, it's in the 99th percentile. So it's actually the 99th percentile of testing on the GRE, which is I think the entrance level for the graduate school. The worst it has is at the very bottom, it's Code Forces rating, English literature and English language. It's not really great at those yet, but it's made impressive strides over the 3.5. The one they have today has moved all these to the right. It was also the fastest adopted individual technology since we've ever recorded technology. Now, this is what's interesting about chat.gpt and Sam Altman's company. Google has had Bard and Chat available in some form in artificial intelligence for over 10 years, but they decided not to allow it to be unleashed on people because they didn't think humanity was ready for it. Sam Altman had a different idea and proceeded forward with it. So looking at some of the ethical issues when this comes in, it's absolutely amazing. Well, here's what's interesting. Chat.gpt has a lot of different functions. You can ask a lot of questions. It's got Dolly that can make pictures as well. We'll show you. But let me bring this up. Are we using AI with what we do? And then the answer, yes, we are. We're using it to enhance what it is we do and begin to make some of the rote tasks even more workable, make us better at them. But Mike, how about some of the things we're doing with Raymond James? We were just at the Raymond James program and I turned Mike loose on the technology hub. And I mean, I turned him loose like a rabid dog. I like let him off leash and he zoomed in right away and he was asking questions that we all wanted to know. What did you find out? How are we using artificial intelligence even with RJ systems?
I feel bad for the technology hub. I wasn't there, but you unleashing Mike on them had to be a tough day for them.
It was a tough day. We all know Mike. So Mike, what'd you find?
Absolutely. I was walking up to client reporting, Zach, and Chris goes, all right, let him have it, walks away. So, but anyways, so some of the really cool things that Raymond James is doing with AI is that first off, recognizing it, right? We want to make sure that we entrust custodying our clients' assets, the most important asset to all of us, is taking the steps that they need to make sure that everybody's protected. With artificial intelligence, all these different things out there, it's creating security risks. Well, one of the things that Raymond James is most excited about how they can use artificial intelligence is combating that, finding them before they become a problem, and then also being able to then securely keep them away at some point in the future. Other ways that they're looking to use some of the artificial intelligence and different things is by giving them directly to us. We can use now an improved ChatGPT model through Microsoft Copilot to be able to look into things, design, create, always kind of go through and just be able to give us a little bit quicker answers when it comes to some of the questions. Now, you take all this with a grain of salt. Chris will be the first to tell you that this is a first draft model whenever you look at something created by artificial intelligence, because there's faults to it. Sometimes it's only as good as the data that it's fed into it. So at the end of the day, we got to make sure that what we're giving is correct. And that's something, those are the checks that we do. One of the other ways that Raymond James is helping us increase our service, become a little bit better, is by actually providing one of their own internal AIs to the back office. So when we call back office support, if they don't have an answer right away, they pump those numbers or whatever the question is right into an artificial intelligence that shows them Raymond James system and allows them to give us better, more accurate service faster. And that in turn allows us to do more for you. And so it was very cool to be able to see some of the initiatives, some of the things that are happening. You know, a lot of us back in the office are just so excited about how efficient and how much better we can do our jobs. And in turn, that passes along to everybody who works with us. And so at the end of the day, you know, through 21 pages of notes and a little over 9,000 words, it's always hard for me to simplify, but Chris challenges me every single time. So there you have it. Those are some of the things that Raymond James brings out and you can expect in the future to help us provide service better.
Thanks, Mike. And like I said as well, one of the most important aspects of this is it's literally not trackable by humans. So I've been doing this for a long time, going through the abundance technology. Why do I bring it to you? Because we're now seeing things that 5 and 8 and 10 years ago were just ideas. And now we're going to start to see them in massive, rapid fashion. I'm going to say this, over the next 5 to 10 years, prepare to be amazed on a consistent basis. I mean, Peter Diamandis talks a lot of times about the future is faster than you think. But I've got an existential question. When is the future? Isn't the future by definition always sometime ahead of today? So we can't really enjoy the future. We can't live in the future. So I'd say let's enjoy today. Some of the biggest things I take away is becoming a better and better human is the answer in an age of machine learning and artificial intelligence. Because once it takes away some of the rote tasks, if we're there to be more human, we'd better be good humans, or it might unveil some things that we never wanted to show, which are maybe we're not as grateful as we should be. Maybe we're not pleasant. But I think working on those things is still the key to the future, if you will, in human interactions. But most importantly, too, the biggest aspect that they talked about of this was humans interacting with machines is the future. It's not humans or machines, humans taking over machines, or machines taking over humans, I should say, that everybody thinks and worries about. So we had a very interesting conversation twice, because the first time he called in, it was kind of chattery, which is quite funny because it was a call with Elon Musk. We talked to Elon on Peter's cell phone, brought it up on screen. It was quite funny for like 5 or 10 minutes. They try to get a good connection, which is quite ironic because he runs one of the biggest connection companies in the world called, Starlink. The second time he called back after lunch, and we could tell because he was eating a sandwich on his plane while he had his Starlink satellites actually zooming it in, it was much better. We asked a lot of questions, and the questions were all centered around one major idea. Looking at everything he's looked at before, he's a really good pattern recognizer. The question was asked, so what do you think of this future with AI? Well, I've studied this quite a bit, he said, and I think it's an 80% likely outcome that of abundance, meaning that the likely interaction of humans and machines is abundance. And that's a huge thing we have. Available things when we need them, when we want them. A 10 to 20% chance of a dystopian future and outcome. But he says everything being created is being created with good intent in mind, which doesn't mean bad people can't get a hold of it. But it was an interesting thing to hear from a big pattern recognizer like him, who's obviously looked at electric cars, he's looked at electric storage. He really has changed the world that we live in today. To hear his thoughts on this, and Ray Kurzweil as well. There's a lot of great experts there when a lot of their predictions come true. So a couple of things I think that I thought that would be interesting to share as well as I got back from the program is I think for the kids today, working on the right brain and orchestration is going to be extremely important. If machines can do out of the left brain rote things, if we can feed a tax return into a computer, it can give us a perfect return every time. What is the value of a human in doing taxes, right? Those are some of the things we look at. If you're looking here, even some of the ideas of, chat.gpt, you can take photos with chat.gpt. It can take an entire page and it can organize just into 3 points, just like that. This is about how chat.gpt works. Step 1, to collect and demonstrate data and train a supervised policy. Step 2, collect comparison data and train a reward model. Step 3, optimize a policy against the reward model using a PPO. It went through all of these different pieces, and you'll see what it came from both humans. It's very difficult in the long term. Chat.gpt can come up with answers on these in a very, very quick update. a very, very quick basis. So it can do complex math problems that we potentially couldn't solve and noodle on, but it doesn't have the intuition of a human until a human gives it the direction of intuition. Remember, what can artificial intelligence do? Absolutely nothing. What it can tell us to do is guide us on things we can do. So at this point, until it's in a robot moving around on its own, which is in the future, by the way, and I've seen it, it doesn't have a lot of opportunities. There's 3 or 4 of these in the world right now. Elon Musk is making an entire fleet of robots that are designed to work in factories and other things for repetitive injury, or for repetitive tasks and things that we may not want to do as humans. So I think as I run through those are big. A couple of different things as we go through this as well is taking a look at some of the art that you can create with it. If you go to the next one. So the photos you see right now on screen were all created by DALL-E. They were inspired by me as I gave it what to create. I said, create a dystopian future with, for instance, Da Vinci or something connecting artificial intelligence for today in electronics to the far ancient past of those in Greece and some of the great teachers we've had in the past. So what you've got here is 6 different examples of things that were created completely by the computer, but with the inspiration of a human telling it what it should do. And when it came back, do I want dark skin, light skin? Do you want, this or that? You can ask it other questions and it will recreate the photo. But some of these, when you look really close at the detail, are absolutely astounding. Absolutely astounding. So this is called DALL-E. If you've taken a look at it, this is an artificial intelligence picture generator, which all of you can play with. You can actually play with it free as well at chat.gpt. So how about the next one as well, please? The next one I want to take a look at is robotics. So we had Dean Kamen here. Dean Kamen is a founder of a robotics program, probably that your grandchildren are in school in right now. And with that competition, he's brought 197 countries together. Even countries that don't allow women to work on things like this have had women, all female teams coming to this robotics competition. And they were absolutely amazed to see them. There's some incredible stories when you look up Dean Kamen in robotics. And he really has done some incredible things. What I'd like to show you is a company we've followed quite a bit here. And just the anatomy of a robot. We started with the Big Tog, the L3. We had the Atlas on stage as well. We've seen Spot. We've seen Spot Mini. As you run down here, up and down, you've got Petman at the beginning, Cheetah, Wildcat, Handle, and all the way to Spot. But what's really interesting is check out the next video. What do you think of this? So as you've seen, what if your next pet didn't eat, poop, didn't have to sleep, but became one of your best companions, and it didn't bark, or it did if you wanted it to? Quite interesting when you think about the possibilities. Right now, this is actually something they're using in warehouses and other things to patrol, also to see. You see the little portion that's ahead can be an eye or a hand to grab things from high shelves. It's absolutely amazing to watch this. And if you go to Boston Dynamics on their website as well, there's some really cool videos when it shows what's happening with some of their robots now. Their dexterity, their ability to move are absolutely amazing. So as we look at robotics, robotics are really making massive, massive advances as well. Now, when you add a large language model or a chat.gpt into a robot, you begin to get something that seems a bit more humanoid. It's something you can ask a question to, it will think itself and then respond to you in some form. That is something that's coming up that's absolutely amazing as well. I mean, there's so many things that you can look at and go, no way, that's not happening. So while there, I actually saw a gentleman who was in a VTOL, a personal VTOL, that's a vertical takeoff and landing vehicle, fly out in this thing with probably 15 propellers on it. It flew out over the ocean. It was flying around this place in Southern California here, and to the point where the people were reporting UFOs. It flew out over the ocean. It flew back in. It showed us. We actually saw it and got to play with it in the tech hub as well, not to fly it, but just to look at it and sit in it. And last year we had the Jetson one. The previous year we had somebody who had jet gloves and a jetpack that was actually flying and flew in over the ocean, swept in, landed, and came back and saw us as well. So looking at the idea of human flight in alternative vehicles is amazing as well. But these are things that are happening with it. Now, what is coming together to converge in? Material sciences. Let me give you one example. With artificial intelligence, it has helped create a bank of 7,000 different combinations of both elements and mineral elements together with minerals, things we haven't used before, but could be used in certain equations if we need them. This bank is now there waiting for us to create them and create uses for those elements. So we've created something now that's lighter than graphene and also creates a better electrical circuit as well. So material sciences is at the base of these, creating incredible advances, if you will. At the same point in time, artificial intelligence is helping create what those materials are. So they're working with humans to create great things that humans will be able to use, but we may not have been able to do the 7 trillion calculations it was to create the 7,000th element. So that's where humans working together with this are absolutely amazing. The next category I'd like to go into a bit here is in longevity. So longevity is a wonderful item. And I think as you look at it, a lot of people look at longevity and the health advances as something that's kind of pie in the sky. Here's some statements that come directly from it. Number one, they're believing that artificial intelligence, when it comes to reading charts and seeing your MRIs, as well as seeing live shots as well of your body, will be able to help detect and battle cancer better. The next one as well, you're starting to see the idea that can we create, and that's another idea with this as well. When is the first time that we'll be able to create a one-man unicorn? It's like, what the heck? Unicorns don't exist. Well, I'll tell you what, they might be able to bring in a horn from a deer, put it on a deer's head directly in the center and create a unicorn. So quite funny. Now, the second thing they talked about unicorn was, and this is back in the business section, when will they be able to create a company that's $1 billion company that has one person in it? Somebody then raised their hand and brought it, hey, wait, they call them unicorns as companies. When are we going to be able to create a unicorn with no people in it? $1 billion company that is not founded by humans. It's founded by AI itself. So as you look at some of the ideas of chat.gpt, artificial intelligence, large language models, but the longevity that goes along with it as well is absolutely kind of an amazing piece. So we've had David Sinclair there telling us that you'll be able to rejuvenate a lot of the systems in your body and a lot of the cells as your cells have a memory. That's absolutely amazing to see. They're also people talking about using psychedelics and psilocybin and mushrooms to actually reduce stress so that you live a longer life and healthier life mentally, which is another amazing piece. We've also got the idea of regrowing limbs and organs. We showed somebody who showed us the tapeworm who can regrow, a third of itself. And they're saying, why can't we do that with humans? They believe that we'll be able to regrow a hand if it gets cut off. Organs definitely as well. Dean Kamen is now creating organs in his lab out in, I think it's Connecticut. This big old lab, he's creating organs and just building them from scratch so that you can use them if we no longer have donors, because motorcycles and cars no longer crash. People don't die to donate you organs. That's a big problem. We have people already thinking of the consequences of the things that may happen when we have driverless cars that don't crash, right? It's really, really interesting. Some of the other ideas as well, when it comes to like Alzheimer's, muscular dystrophy, some of the things that we're seeing, they're doing more and more research into the origins of those diseases and what can we do with artificial intelligence to help. So when it comes to longevity, it becomes a lot of different pieces, because I look at it as healthgevity. If we can live another 20 or 30 years, here may be the conversation with your 30 and 40-year-old kids. So that's great that you're a doctor during this 30 years of your life, and then you can retire. What do you want to be in your second career, in your second life? When you get a chance to do something that now you also really want to do other than the job that you had to do. So we may have 60 healthy years here. What would you do? And this is a good question. What would you do with an additional 30 healthy years? When I talk about healthgevity, not sick and just living to 100 but not feeling well, but I'm talking actually de-aging a bit and feeling much healthier. So there's several things going on in that category. One is gut health. That's a huge part of it. Another is regenerative medicine, which is a massive, they're doing things like regenerating, regrowing ears, regrowing organs, like I've told you as well. But also, I think I told you this, one reason to be really, really, really nice to your grandkids is because they're finding that young fecal matter transplanted into older people has a massive increase in the digestive system and energy and cognition. So let me put it in a different way. Young poop makes you much more vital and gives you a lot more energy. So you might want to be nice to your grandkids or young people because someday you may need something you never thought you would need from them. So as we go through, these are things they're studying more and more of. What can we do? For instance, if you're under 60 years old, they say, do not get a knee replacement because they believe that knee replacements in the next 3 to 4 years, when we talked to a scientist there, she had found that they're able to regrow cartilage now, and your own cartilage, insert it in your knee and have it attached to the surfaces of your knees or hips, wherever you may need them. These are things that they're looking at saying in the next 5 and 6 years, do not, in the next 3 to 4 years, I would say, do not get a knee replacement because when you don't have human tissue, you can't have anything to form this new cartilage on. So these are the conversations that are going on there. Now you come back to human society here and to normal people, and you start bringing these ideas up. They go, yeah, but when is that going to happen? Where can I go with that? Right now, one of our good friends, or our friends from Strategic Coach Dan Sullivan, has gotten this redone. He's had to go to Buenos Aires, Argentina, but he just showed us an MRI that has 4 millimeters of cartilage that used to be bone on bone. So actually taken and regrown his own cartilage, replaced it in his knee, and now it's got 4 millimeters of cartilage. Now we'll see how long it lasts. We'll report on that again. But these are the miracles of modern science that are happening now because of the new information we have, the new information processing. Now, everything we're talking about is with today's technology, today's semiconductors, today's speeds. 2 things you may have heard of in the past. 1, quantum computing is coming. Quantum computing takes what we have now and it's a multiplicity of that computer, meaning it's just single computer now. It's what 1,000 of the computers we have today can do with a single computer. For instance, there's good things it can do. It can do computations we've never seen. There's bad things it can do. It can break any code possible. So all those dual codes you have for your passwords don't work. You know, GCAT 4976432, right? It can figure that out at about 6 seconds, and it'll be doing it faster and faster. So technology, as it's becoming better and better, I think some of the big concerns with it are deep fakes. There's a few things out there now. I could create a vision of, or a zoom of myself, catch my images that are on the web and all the webinars that I've done and the stuff, and actually can create a deep fake of me. With that deep fake of me, I can do a Zoom call with you. You don't know if it's me or not. These are ethical issues we need to take a look at. So between the 2 of us, we'll probably create code words called, you know, code word with you is, hey, how about that? How's your cat? How's your cat, Jim? Well, I don't have a cat, Jim. That's right. Or you do, and the artificial intelligence that's sitting there in front of you, and this deep fake won't know it. So asking personal questions, knowing something about each other, getting to know each other better is going to be more important than you think for different reasons. I think giving you some of the ideas of what we also saw, let me go through this. I talked about regrowing limbs and organs, healing nerve periphery. So a lot of people feel pain as they age, right? What if we were able to counteract the pain and heal the neuropathic issues that go along with limbs and different body parts as we age? I mean, it would be amazing. And we could then have healthgevity, not just longevity, right? Chip Wilson, who's a founder of Lululemon, has a degenerative muscular disease. So he is fighting with all of his money to find a way to grow muscle faster than he's losing it. So looking at that, that's muscular dystrophy, right? That's multiple sclerosis as well. How can we get rid of the sclerosis on our nerves as we would maybe get that? So Chip is putting $300 million in an X Prize and finding somebody who can help him to literally eliminate the disease that he has. So a lot of great people, when afflicted with something, become great solvers of issues we can benefit from as well. So the immune system, this is interesting. As we age, the immune system gets very angry. So we're trying to figure out how to calm it down and get rid of senescent cells that just sit there in our body, but it's why our skin sags, because they don't reproduce, and they don't reproduce at a young age. They reproduce and they don't do anything. And that's why you start to see wrinkles and things, you know, if you start to look at that, A lot of my clients goes, I'm in. How can I get rid of those? Right now, I'd say you probably can't, but we're getting closer and closer. The probably biggest thing that I see as well that's interesting is the BCI, brain-computer interface. You've just seen the first person implanted with a brain-computer interface. He was a quadriplegic. He's able to control things with his own thoughts. 2 of the leads just came out, so they got to figure out how to keep the leads that are there. But remember, the human brain doesn't have nerves, so they can operate on the brain and you don't feel pain. But what they have to be careful is that they don't hit an area that causes you not to be able to speak or to think in a certain way. But looking at brain-computer interfaces, they're also looking at putting a skull cap on that doesn't have to go into your brain. It can sit on top of it and actually both read, and there's 2 things, read and feed you information. So I'm looking at Ken. Oh, it sees that's Ken. Oh, Ken has 3 kids. No, he has 4. Oh, that's right. Does he have a dog? No. Oh, hey, Ken's wife's name is Sarah. Ken went here to school. All of a sudden, you can see all this data that you don't need to retrieve. What will the human brain be? What will it do when you can have automatic retrieval of things you thought you forgot? Now, I know it's like drinking from a fire hose. I get super excited about this stuff, and there's more that I can continue to go on with. But I think as we looked at this as well, the biggest thing I said is we had a gentleman named Keith Ferrazzi there. Keith Ferrazzi works with corporations, and we talk about things like human interface amongst humans when computers begin to take over some of the tasks that we have. What are some of the things that we can do? Ask each other questions like, what is the biggest thing you're facing right now? Find people you're super comfortable with, but asking that question, what is the biggest thing you're facing right now? And is there any way I can help? Approach people with the idea of how can I help you, not what I can get from you. So the cool thing about it is we're still talking a lot. And I talk to Peter all the time about, let's bring in the human side of the equation, because there's 2 things I'm going to say. When you look at the bigger picture of technology, are humans better off because of technology? In some ways, health-wise, physical-wise, maybe, more knowledge. But on the side of human happiness, teen anxiety, suicides, why are more people ending their life? Why do people generally seem less happy? Why does there seem to be more confusion in the world? Could it be that we're overwhelmed with everything that's coming at us and our brain's not prepared for it? Yes. How do we resolve that? The biggest thing is when we're looking at progress in technology, what do we measure it by? If humans are creating it for humans, might it be that we're actually going in the wrong direction? So I posit these questions. Why I go there is to be to be somebody that you can rely upon to take a look at these items before they happen, to see who's doing it and ask them why, what they're trying to solve, what this will do for us, how it can. Bring it back to prepare you, and most importantly, your family, our team, to be able to answer these questions, to see where these things are going to intersect you or hit you on the blind side. I'd much rather have you know about them before they've happened. We talked about artificial intelligence several years ago, and a lot of people are like, yeah, whatever. Last year, it became real instantly. These new technologies are going to hit immediately. You're going to have mass usage on an instantaneous basis. And it's probably going to be created by somebody who's not human. So these are the things we have to look forward to. The things that we get to look forward to in the bigger picture, if you will, in communication, more information. But I think becoming better communicators as human is a big part of this. There's a lot more depth I can go into in some of the different pieces and with amazing functions of, you can, like, for instance, if you want to go to iconbuild.com, it shows you how 3D printing will now print homes, but not just in the crazy, block formats you've seen. It can print homes that look like museums now. So Icon has been coming back every year showing us their advancements. And you can now print museum quality homes. They took 1,000 designers from around the world and asked them to submit their best designs so that they could print that for clients if they wanted to. They're creating the biggest museum of possible homes that could be 3D printed in the world. It's based in Texas. They can print anywhere in the world. But this is the things that are coming at us. It's food. I again once ate food once again that was 3D printed or lab generated, meaning it was never in an animal. While we were there, it's this incredible world of what's happening. And I don't want to overwhelm you with too much information, but I'd say that the 2 core aspects are computing power, artificial intelligence, large language models, as long as they're allowing us to be better humans and taking over things that we want them to. So the downside of that to some is going to be, I don't like technology. I don't want to deal with technology. I don't even know how to use it. Where these things come together is a massive user interface. If you have your own personal Jarvis, personal assistant that can schedule a vacation, take care of the things you really don't want to take care of, maybe clean the floor, do the things that it needs to do that you really don't want to, what will you do when it buys back that time that you're spending doing things you don't want to? That's the way to consider technology. That's how it helps us. When you have a dog named Astro that's not a real dog, but it's a real dog to you that you could leave and travel for a week or two and you don't need to take it somewhere to a kennel. You just need to keep it plugged in to an energy source. There's some incredible things that are coming here and how it will impact our families. It's why I go. It's why I bring this to you. I will bring you more and more as we continue to see it. I'll give you a couple resources to subscribe to if you want to follow it as well. But I'll say it's all intended for good for us and for humans. I will continue to go for another 13 years because we've committed to 25 years there, and I'll bring them back to you and bring you back the latest advancements. This one, I'd have to say, the two were artificial intelligence. This was called the Great AI Debate. Most of our conversation was around what could happen. There's some people who say this might happen, this might happen. We're going to predict this will happen. The interesting part about it, when technology itself is getting smarter and smarter and it's creating itself, how do we predict what will happen with it? I don't know if there's a model for that. Number one. And then the second thing I think we'll see here with this Abundance 360 program as we go forward is the incredible things it does with our travel, with how long it takes us to get places, with the fact that you may never run into another traffic jam, you'll get there safe, and your grandchildren may never need to drive a car. They may never own it because they can simply call a car up and say for $10 they can go anywhere they want. Why would they buy this horrible gas guzzling or electric vehicle that they don't need to own? They can just get to where they want to. So for those of you who are car enthusiasts, I know you're like, whatever. No way, that'll never happen. But for those of you who are the technologists, you go, oh yeah, I'd take that ride, to hop in a place, like in your electric RV, hop in your electric RV, go to sleep at night, wake up in Yellowstone. That's not a bad idea. I'd travel in that resort. Anyway, I'll continue to bring these to you over the next, 12 or 13 years, like I said. If you have questions or so, I'm going ahead and I'll stop right now and I'll let you ask questions. What kind of questions do you guys have?
I got a question for you, Chris.
Yes.
When it comes to like portfolio construction or investing, like how are we invested in AI? How can you be invested in AI? How does that work?
That's a great question, Dick. So can I be invested in AI? AI is a lot like the internet. You can't invest in the internet. Internet is something that we can benefit from. Artificial intelligence is very similar. You can't invest in artificial intelligence. You can maybe invest in companies that create large language models, right? But artificial intelligence is a concept. What it's going to do more of, let's say that like there's a company out there that makes green tractors, right? It's one of the top AI companies that exists. This green tractor company now has a tractor that has no pilot, no farmer in it. So are we investing directly in it? It's almost impossible to. There's some companies that make chips that have certain names. You probably know who they are. There's companies who've made chips that are trying to catch up to this company as well. But I'd say those aren't artificial intelligence. Those are things that are using artificial intelligence to become better and better and better. The way that we really see this with longevity and other things as well, and how we're benefiting, is you've got a company like Mark Cuban created something just recently, and it's called costplusdrugs.com. It's cost plus 15% is what he created the company for. So when you're looking at generic drugs, they may cost $1,000, through a generic company. They were $5,000 through the non-generic company, but he gets them for $43. Marks it up 15%, so you pay $47. That may be less than the copay. How's he able to do this? They're able to do this because they can use computers, artificial intelligence, and other items to make their operation extremely efficient. And so we're investing in companies that are using artificial intelligence, and we're using it as well to help make sure what we're doing is efficient, but it's looking at the time-tested ways that we looked at retirement before. Most of all, we are looking at what humans want and how computers can help us get there, and artificial intelligence can help us get there. But yes, we're definitely invested in the concept. But like the internet, Apple, Netflix, Google, I'm saying these names, you may have to edit those out, but there's some big companies out there in search. And when you look at things like entertainment and others that have all been internet-based, right? The next stage is what's going to be artificial intelligence based. Your favorite actor in the future might actually be somebody who's not a real person. And that's the kind of stuff it's creating. So you may see entire sports competitions that are all made up, kind of like pro wrestling. I'm joking with that. I know some of the people really enjoy it, but I'm saying, right? So you might see things like that as well. The second, one of the big concepts, this kind of goes back to the forum as well. What happens when we're able to put superhuman, like for instance, now they have a superhuman exoskeleton you can put on your legs that actually makes you jump like 4.5 feet. What are we going to do when somebody can use that or have that, maybe built into their genetics to have a 5-foot vertical leap? Well, should they still be in the Olympics? Or is that something that's called, genetically modified? Well, there's a lot of things coming up that are called ethical dilemmas and moral dilemmas. We'll have to decide what those are. There's going to be true human Olympics, which will be boring. And then probably this robotic, enhanced Olympics that people can, literally scale mountains in 10 seconds, right? Or run the 100-yard dash in 3 seconds, or if they run at all. So it's an interesting part, but yes, we are investing in it. We're using that to benefit you. I think it's every technology that's occurred is something that drives the next wave of innovation. This one could be massive, but remember, it doesn't mean it will be. It could be massive and very interesting. For instance, right now, drones. We're having drone wars in small countries can now create a military nuisance with any other major power by sending a drone in with a bomb to drop it on somebody immediately, and on somebody or on a naval base. We have to work on counter drone technology. So it used to just be throw a net, the drone falls, right? Now they've got lasers that are shooting them. So Palmer Luckey has a company that's creating those. Palmer Luckey is a gentleman who sold to, I think it was to Facebook. He sold the Oculus Rift for $2.3 billion. Took the money, started a U.S. defense company, because that's what you do when you're 21, right? Get $2.3 billion and start a U.S. defense company. This is the cool thing, because this is who we get to see that is there. There are entrepreneurs doing incredible things. He can't even tell us what it is now, because with artificial intelligence, with his technology, he's doing subterranean, they're doing laser protection, they're doing protection we've never even thought of. That is our next generation defense to keep us safe. So people like that are really wonderful to see. They're super inspiring, and it's great to know people like that are out there. And talking to these people, I sat next to the chief technology officer from Airbus. He quit. Why? Because he believes personal vertical takeoff and landing vehicles are very soon to be here, like Archer, like some of the aviation companies out there as well. And he thinks that those are very soon. When you can drive in 17 lanes of traffic straight up, that's how people will get places they won't get there via roads that have traffic jams and have accidents. You'll have 17 to 20 lanes up and down vertically, so you'll be able to go anywhere you want at any time. Super cool stuff, though. I can go through a lot more, but that's a great question, Zach. The answer is yes. We are seeing more and more of that, and we are invested in technology and artificial intelligence, but more than likely, it's going to make other companies the best they've ever been. It's great. Any other questions from those in the audience as well? Ooh, that's a good one. We'll save that one for another time, though. Oh, that one's good too. Thanks. I appreciate that. I'll answer it another time as well. Thank you, guys. I do appreciate that. So let's take a look. From all of us here at Gentian Financial, here's the 14 of us. And, as you look through this, this is a bunch of phenomenal people here. And the beautiful thing about this, they're here dedicated to helping making your life better. We're here to be your accompanist. So you are the star. We are the ones helping you and your Sherpa, carrying your pack up the mountain, simplifying your life so you can live your best version of you. I've got wonderful, wonderful team here dedicated to that, making us all look better and better and better, and helping us all live great lives. So I want to give them a great round of applause. They put this together. They help us and allow us to go and find programs like this and help serve you while we're learning about things like this to bring them back. So without them, we're nothing. And I want to also thank all of you who've been giving us introductions. You're bringing great people in to talk to us, and you're screening ahead of time to make sure they're good people. Thank you. But we grow and we win awards together. When I say we, that's you, my team, and us together. We together do this. So we know we're a community. We're grateful for you. We know our place in it. And our place is to lift you up and make sure that you attain everything you'd like to. So with that, I want to thank you tremendously from our galactic headquarters here in Mequon, Wisconsin. You get a chance to take your technology on your phone, take your phone like this up to this screen, and give us some feedback by taking a picture of that and going and answer the couple questions. So if there's more questions you'd like to know about, please let us know. If they're really, really, really difficult technical questions, please ask Mike, Zach, or Ken. If they're just appreciation questions about how much you enjoyed us in the program, go ahead and send them to me. With that, I want to thank you all. Have a great, great, great rest of your day. Thank you for the time you've invested here. Thank you for allowing us to be your advisors. And we really, really appreciate the fact that you put your trust in us. And we take it very seriously. We're here to serve you. We understand it. With that, thank you very much. And we will all wave goodbye. Thank you. Have a great rest of your day.